want or claim that they want are doable or even valid. But there are learnings. There are learnings from that consumer convenience, consumer safety, consumers, how we treat them at the home, at deliveries, asking more questions. Do you want drivers in your home? Do you want us to take away the old mattress? Be aware, our employees need to be safe as well. Is there anything about the condition of your old mattress that we need to be aware of that could potentially endanger the safety of our employees? I just think there'll be a little bit more of a consumer focus and a little bit more meeting of the minds if we ask the right questions. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And that seems to be the trend with everybody that I talk to. And I think you kind of pointed it out, Bob, which is not necessarily everything the consumer asks for is what we'll be able to do. And sometimes I think there are situations where the consumer is not asking for something, but through some pointed questioning, we can identify ways to help them that they don't consciously think about, because they're not sitting around going, boy, whenever that mattress purchase comes up, here are the things I really want,
Right.
But after the fact, we could say, hey, describe the experience for us and do a deep dive and figure out ways to be proactive with kind of dovetailing what we can do with their needs. And I hear that over and over again, this trend toward making sure the consumer is empowered. Go ahead.
That I think retailers are also empowered to protect the health and safety of their people as well. And I think the consumer will be a lot more amenable, a lot more open to a negotiation of safety. And it really, I'm talking more or less all about the contact points of our business: deliveries, take with, appointments, having lots of people in the stores. Please wait. I need to deal with one customer at a time, or only two customers, because I can't have you crowding in one space. I just think that we can leverage some of these broader awareness points to our advantage, as long as we continue to ask questions and focus on them.
Good perspective. Yeah, well, we've got an amazing guest, and I know that to be true because he's been on the podcast before. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Hey guys, how are you? Good. Yourself?
Good. So this is Michael Grossman. For those of you who don't know him, he's the president of Kensington Furniture in Northfield, New Jersey. And I saw Michael speak at the Furniture Today betting conference. Was it betting or leadership?
Leadership.
They tend to all kind of overlap in my mind. But Michael put on, I say put on a great show, but he gave such a heartfelt speech about the conditions in the New Jersey area, casinos closing, and how he and his team responded to that. I thought I really want to have him on the podcast. And I highly recommend you go back and listen to that episode if you haven't. You can go to mattresspodcast.com and just type in Michael Grossman, and it'll pop up. But now here we are with Michael. I want to go back and have you describe the conditions and your response, and then you can kind of get us up to speed with what's happening in the second hardest hit area of the United States. So why don't you just kind of level set and kind of tell us about your business, tell us about you, tell us about kind of our original conversation, and then we can kind of get up to the current.
Thank you for your kind words, and I appreciate your inclusion. I'm a fourth generation brick and mortar retailer, been in business for 108 years. And our business is located in suburban Atlantic City. And Atlantic City in 2017 had roughly 4 casinos closed, about 10,000 jobs were lost. And we were devastated by the impact of casinos opening in and around adjoining markets. And we had to survive our brick and mortar retailer, our brick and mortar business. And so what I learned to do at first is, instead of looking and thinking about business strategy, what I talked on the podcast is that I worked on myself. And I went to a Tony Robbins business mastery seminar, and that experience really jolted me to think about my business. And one takeaway cliche from that seminar was that the owner is the chokehold on their business. And the way that we think, the way that I conduct myself, my behaviors, my marketing approach, my whole way of thinking can really inhibit my growth. And I knew that I had to rethink the way I did business. And as a fourth generation retailer, I also realized that I could no longer think like things are assumed, that business is just going to happen because I always did it the way I did. And we had to reinvent ourselves. And I use the distinction in the talk that you have to think more like a first generation American opposed to a fourth generation American. And first generation Americans came off the boat and they had to be scrappy. They had to be resourceful. They had to be hardworking. They had to not presume anything and know that tomorrow was not guaranteed. And that ethic and approach was really helpful in us pulling out of what was a really difficult market. In fact, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce ranked our community one of the top 5 worst for economic metrics in the country for almost 2 consecutive years. And how do you take a 65,000 square foot furniture retail space and maintain yourself in that environment while also dealing with the proliferation of big box and digital? And I think we survived it and we thrived during that. And now we're stuck with COVID. And COVID is, I think someone said to me yesterday, we're dealing with the 1917, if I'm correct, plague. We're dealing with the 1929 depression, and we're dealing with the 1968 riots, all within the same 30 to 45 days. So what we are confronting is never happened in our country. So I would think that what I was doing in 2017 is almost like child's play next to the challenges and complexity with which we have to confront right now. So clearly, obviously, mindset and approach is really important, because through COVID, and we've been closed since the 18th of March, and our governor just announced that we can open partially on the 15th of June. So that'd be like 90 plus days being closed. You can go into bouts of depression because of what's happening, not just to the world and the amount of loss that there is for humanity, but also how it's affecting your business and what you see as the future. And so I've really been working very diligently on what is reimagining your business look like? What does the pivot look like? And I know that Dos Marcos had an amazing podcast with Doug Stevens, who's a retail futurist, and it really crystallized what I was thinking, how I'm thinking about. So I agree with what you guys are talking about in regard to being customer centric, but I would say that being customer centric is something that my great grandfather was, and that my grandfather and my father and I have to be. That's a point of entry in business. But what I think we really have to do right now as a brick and mortar is be digital customer centric. Okay. And that's a huge distinction. And I think a lot of us have been able to get away with certain habits. And this is where we always done it in terms of the way we market, the way we get attention of our customers. And right now we have to really be digital first, because that's where our customer is. And that's how we'll acquire her and be able to get her to come into our store. Now, what that means and how that manifests itself is long conversations and very complicated, but those are the types of strategies and tactics that I think COVID has really made me work on, in conjunction with that. As a small independent operator, I cannot act like a small independent operator when it comes to my operations and my cost certainty. And I have to think and act and be operationally great and not get away with some of the things that typically we are as small businesses to survive what will be uncharted territory in the next coming months and year.
Michael, go into that just a little bit more. When you say operationally excellent and not doing some of the things that maybe were previously lax, describe some of those scenarios for us.
The way that we describe our products and their costs, the way that we get gross margin, how we measure gross margin, how we manage gross margin exception, how we look at our trucking and our freight and how we bring in freight, how we look at all our insurances and on our payroll expenses and every penny that we spend, and how we're efficient in that way, how we operate efficiently and operationally, not only to derive a customer a better experience, but do it in an economic way and try to be structured opposed to being I use the analogy in the talk that, as an independent guy, I'm a coconut juggler. I'm doing 25 jobs, okay? And I have to be able to do 25 jobs, but also try to have as much discipline as, let's say, a big $100 million, $1 billion furniture brick and mortar guy does.
I want to take people kind of back to that moment of investing in your mindset, because this to me was one of the most unexpected turns of a conversation in any podcast I've had. And we've, like you said, we've had Doug Stevens recently, that retail futurist. We've had some great guests. We had John Spolstra, who used to be the president of the Nets, and he's an published author. But when we had you on the show, Michael, you talked about going to that Tony Robbins event as the step you took to take your business to the next level. And it was all about investing in your mindset. So talk about who you saw whenever you walked in that room and your seeds of doubt. And then talk about the lessons in mindset and how they're maybe paying off today and how you've used those lessons in mindset through COVID.
So when I walked into the space, I was sitting waiting for the conference to begin, and which is typical of a Jewish retailer, I was feeling guilty. Should I be back at the store? And was I doing something that was wrong? And what am I doing here? And I spent a lot of money, and I'm going through all these negative thoughts, which is part of your mindset. You tell yourself a negative story, and then you believe the negativity of the story, and then it manifests itself in reality. As I'm sitting there, in walks Todd Wanick from Ashley and his senior management team. And it just said, wow. And I quickly approached him and I asked him, why he's there. And he said, because he recognized that his team needed to think about things differently, and for the change that he wanted to implement in that company. And he knew that having a mindset jolt is paramount to the success that he wanted to execute at Ashley. And so it kind of just, there's comfort in numbers. It made me feel, wow, maybe I'm on to something, which made me even dive deeper into my own journey, so to speak.
And then as you've taken that journey and it led you to emerging, I remember we talked in the podcast about results. So you invested in mindset, you rallied your team, more toward kind of, like you said, this digital customer-centric approach. You emerged from these terrible economic conditions when the casino shut down, and you had double-digit sales growth, double-digit traffic increases.
Yes.
And then here we are today. Do you have moments where you have to go back to that event that you invested in and think, what is my mindset and how do I use this gift of time? How have you processed that mentally?
Well, I think that every day I try to be disciplined and feed my brain with positivity, like exercise. I've worked on not missing a day of exercise because of the discipline that engenders. And concurrently, I've worked on making sure I listen to podcasts like Dos Marcos or other things that give me positive juice and energy so that my mindset won't wander to where its natural inclination is, which is survival and negativity. Because, oh my God, it's going to crash, I'm going to die. And just really making sure that I'm staying calm. And it's the hardest thing that I've ever had to do as an adult, because there's so many reasons, as I said, about the confluence of events that are happening in our country to just feel negative, and then you're not able to do business, because we're closed. And moreover, the consumer confidence, there's no playbook even. Like what's going to happen? How do we know? How do we act in this situation? There's no pattern. There's no economic thing that we can look at to influence our thinking.
I think it's really powerful how you put it in the beginning about those three key events all happening at the same time. So talk to us about what you have done while you've been closed. You mentioned the operational mindset and being, very detail oriented and putting things under a microscope and making sure you're acting like a first generation American. What else have you done? Have you deployed like live chat and video chat and FaceTime and things like that? Or have you taken a different approach internally to what you're doing?
So till like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night till 6:30 in the morning, from 6:30 in the morning, we're using Podium. Podium has been phenomenal for us. Okay. In terms of generating customers and activity, because customers are reaching out that way. We've been intent also on using Facebook Messenger and campaigns around Facebook Messenger that generate activity. And they were right there on the customer, trying to engage in a conversation between me and the manager and other key people in the company to get that customer into the store. And then we have been advertising things like virtual tour, because we don't want to advertise in-store appointment, but obviously we're trying to transmit that into an in-store appointment. And, as an example, on Memorial Day Saturday, we did more business on Memorial Day Saturday this year than we did Memorial Day Saturday in 2019. And it was a good Memorial Day. So that was just on a short staff and just kicking it. And so, but it all was generated off of Messenger and chat leads as customers come into our site and they have questions and we're there present. So I think that one of the lessons of COVID is that that's not going to diminish post reopening and normality. And customers are going to expect me and my team of top-notch people to be there asking questions, and then how to transition them into the store or to a purchase online is, I think, going to be a really instructive thing. And the second thing that we recognize is we really looked at our entire digital strategy of how does the customer enter our site? How do we get her to a result, either to a store visit or a shopping cart? And where is our site structured? And we're really looking at how strategically over the next 3 months we can reintroduce a whole new digital presence, so that, God forbid, we close again in November or December, which people are concerning, that we aren't compromised with the digital footprint that isn't equal to some of the better guys out there that are really capturing the most of the e-commerce business that's being done in our industry.
I remember on the podcast, Michael, you talked about your digital approach was a people approach, and how you put a team mobilized on, creating content, engaging consumers, in-market shoppers during the mattress shopping phase or furniture shopping phase. Has that team stayed in place and continued down that path? Part of that team?
100%. We one of the things that we did is, obviously we had to furlough people and we kept key essential people, but our 2 marketing people that have helped us have remained because they're essential. And the decision we made over post Tony Robbins was that we cut advertising expense to the degree where we had payroll, because we realized that content and people on staff and get customers into the store and work on that, is all that type of stuff, was advertising. And that the advertising of just spending on mass media dollars wasn't going to get it. You needed to have a team in place that would help you get business that way.
Help me understand the conditions a little bit better, because you said that June 15th, much of the state is going to reopen, but you were able to stay open as an essential business on an appointment model, or how is that?
I'm being an immigrant. Okay. What I did is, let's say, is that we are able to, I didn't ask permission. I'm going to ask forgiveness, but we were able to do appointments in the store for a customer. We do it very quietly, and customers have come in, and we've been able to, if they come in and they ask for we've advertised virtual shopping, and when they respond to that virtual shopping, we offer a direct phone line to the manager, or we acquire them through chat, and then the customers, I'd love to come in, and they fire all CDC guidelines, and they come into the store, and we've done good business as I reflected what we did on Memorial Day Saturday.
What questions do you all have for Michael? You can just unmute your line whenever you have something. And it looks like Kevin split. I think your line is unmuted. Do you have audio? No, for some reason we don't have audio from you.
Hey, Michael, it's Bob Munkle.
Hey, Bob.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. So trends with respect to customers' appointments and their approach, are you finding that close rates are higher as a result of a more serious customer? Are you finding, what are your ticket trends? Are your ticket trends going higher, lower, staying the same? What are the main concerns in terms of deliveries and contact with individuals in your company? What are those trends today?
We have the attitude, if we're not going to close 90%, then we're doing something wrong. And that we had a 91% close rate on Memorial Day weekend. So, if a customer is venturing out and they're going to make an appointment, they're serious. And we also have used more aggressive closing tactics. We're not, oh, think about it, okay. And we're a little more gentle. We're saying, okay, what are you doing? And we're having, I would say, a harder close. And it's not offensive. And we're talk tracking in a way that customers are saying yes. And the average ticket has been a little bit all over the place. People are looking for deals and bargains, but we've also had, so it's been a mix. I wouldn't say there's been a pattern, and I would say the average ticket has been consistent with what we've been used to. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Great question, Bob. And, it's something that another kind of stream of this has been product research. So Michael, have you noticed people doing any specific product research in advance before they come in and say, this is what I want to look at specifically? Or has it been more of like categorical, this is a need I have that's kind of general?
I think it's the latter. It's categorical. Customers are, what's also been more robust is our abandoned shopping cart. And so, we're working the abandoned shopping cart, and that's something I do twice a day. I go and I look at it, and I'm personally emailing the customers and going after them. And, it's small business, I guess, but, it's generated activity because customers will abandon shopping cart. And my view is if I don't go after them, they're going to go to one of my competitors. And the human touch aspect of it, the person to person. So I do think that we'll have an advantage because we are, we're like, I use the example, we're Fenway Park. Okay. Whereas my competitor might be some new fancy ball field that's all computerized. We're history, heritage, legacy. And there's a certain feeling about Fenway Park versus, let's say, Jerry World and in Dallas. And so human touch has been effective as a means of getting customers to bite and come in and buy.
Human touch at a time when people aren't supposed to touch. It's kind of an interesting paradox.
Right. And I think our benefit as a brick and mortar retailer, and so then when that is okay, we also think about, okay, what services can we provide? Because, Wayfair and the bed in the box guys and Amazon are only becoming, they're just killing it. And so the only way that I can't compete with them as they are, the only way I can compete with them is through services. So what, as an independent brick and mortar, what services? So I think that Bob mentioned the word customer service. I would even put it in a more tactical viewpoint. What are the services that I can provide that can't be provided competitively? And how do I, in turn, marry that with human touch?
I would echo some of those services. Give us that rundown.
I would echo a point that Michael said earlier because he's spot on and ahead of the curve. I could tell you at Nectar, DreamCloud, and so forth, we're a native digital company. We were born and raised in the 21st century. We, this is our space. We live, eat, breathe ones and zeros. And I can tell you we have an entire team, and I mean an entire team, who just work abandoned carts. That's what they do. So there's outreach, there's emails, there's multiple ways that we work abandoned carts. But I'm going to tell you, there's gold in them Dar Hills. If someone is going to spend enough time on your website to interact with you, to click on things, to print stuff out, to whatever, and then actually put something in a cart, that's a shopper. And all of you on this call, you've all done this. You've put stuff in a cart. So that there is gold in there, and you should invest resources in any and all abandoned carts.
Bob, that's a great like add-on, because if we can do anything in the digital space, if there's any focus that we want to have in the digital space, it's in market shoppers, and that is a clear and evident signal that this person is in the market for a mattress.
So as we get closer to opening, we're measuring every day the dollar amount in the abandoned cart, and it's growing significantly every day. So I think as people are thinking, okay, the COVID, and shelter in place stuff is going away, we're getting more intent on even buying.
Michael, you,
about it, and I also apologize. I'm keep jumping in here, and I also have a hard stop at noon. So regrettably, as great as this conversation is, I have to jet. Think of an abandoned cart as I have to think it over. How do you approach the customer in your store who you've spent time with, you've interacted with, you've shown them product, and they say, I have to think it over? Isn't that kind of where the sale begins? Does that make sense, Michael?
100%. And a good salesman will then ask the right question to overcome the objection, because she's probably saying, I want to shop elsewhere. Okay. Or there's some objection that we haven't addressed in the sales process. So you need to attack that in the right way, with the right talk track, in a way that discovers it, so you come to the sale, because it's just the beginning of the sale, as you just said.
And time is of the essence. These abandoned carts are not something that can sit for days, without being attended to. Time is money there. So to your point, Michael, I think it's absolutely spot on. Abandoned carts are a tremendous opportunity for you to engage. There's some sort of unaddressed question, concern that's holding them back. Because if not, they would have transacted. And if you can get to the root of that through multiple outreach methods or whatever methods you've developed, I would highly encourage you to do so. With that, I'm going to thank everyone, because unfortunately I have a hard stop at noon and I need to jump out. Hey, Mark, thanks for doing all these. I love these.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for being here, Bob.
Okay. You guys have a great day. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Bob.
Michael, take us into your e-commerce presence. Were you set up selling online in advance of COVID? Did you fire up anything in the middle of this? What's the lay of the land there?
The lay of the land is that we were set up. We did next to no business. We've done significantly more business in e-commerce during COVID, but I would argue that we're nowhere near what we need to be. And that's part of the stuff that I referenced earlier, that we have to think about how the customer goes on our site, what their journey is, how we get a result, what's that result look like, and is our site even competitive with a customer that's going to, and you name the digitally native or proficient people out there, and how do we compare? And are we losing customers if we're not good that way?
So Kevin Split, I think we can hear you now. You guys had talked about some of your efforts at City Furniture and how your digital presence had really expanded during this time. Are you seeing some of the same things that Michael's talking about, or what's your experience? Looks like we may not be getting through to Kevin.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me? Okay. So basically, we had a digital presence prior to COVID. Mainly, what we saw was after stores started to close down in Florida. You hear me? Okay. After stores started to close down in Florida, we saw a huge shift to our digital online revenue. So we grew over 600% online from transactions. And now, if you look at the fiscal weeks, that was primarily around week 12 to week 16. And then as we picked back up and reopened, we started, to Michael's point, we started doing the private appointments, and we also started into Zoom to digital appointments. And that, again, that was about anywhere from 80 to 90, the effect of the closer on the online. So we actually took, when we had furloughed 80% of our company, we took our best top 20 sales associates that were at home, and we're basically selling to those, we're on our chat team on our line, and they were converting so much business to where it's crazy. Like, we're actually doing an event here.
Looks like we're kind of cutting in and out. Send him a message here. Michael, let's sorry, Kevin, we're having some trouble with the audio. I'm not sure what's going on. Michael, talk to us about what you've seen from a competitive standpoint. Have you looked at what your competition in your marketplace is doing, or is there no visibility behind the other four walls? What are you seeing out there?
I think that everyone's trying to do the same thing. They're trying to do these in-store appointments. I don't think there's a dissimilar approach. If I could say, I think the competitive situation is we're brick and mortar guys are doing one thing. It's just what's happening with the, digitally native, that term. I think that's where we're losing market share right now. And, it's a problem. I think the industry is losing market share to that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I talked to some pretty credible sources behind the scenes about the last 2 weeks of April potentially being the biggest 2-week period for online mattress sales in history. Let's go to the mattress category. Are you seeing much activity there? Talk about your mattress business.
Which blows me away. Customers who are coming in the store are not afraid in any way to lie on mattresses. And I thought that would be a problem. We would have to put the cover sheets on it. And customers have thus far, as long as they feel that the store is safe and clean, okay with lying on mattresses. And the mattress business, we've been able to do some mattress business and keep it the same percentage, the 18% of our sales roughly in mattresses. And so it's been consistent with the customers that have come in.
And that was the case over Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Give us a little more flavor on Memorial Day, by the way. You said you had a bigger Memorial Day, but the store was officially closed. I mean, it wasn't open.
We just had, we had nearly, 18 appointments, and all those appointments closed. So, and they closed, and there was nice sales attached to it. And it was mind-boggling that we did that. And it wasn't even, it was a third of the staff that we normally would have. And the payroll was obviously less as well. So, it was, and we didn't even spend the money in advertising that we did. We just did some Facebook campaigns. So it proved that we didn't have to go and, we spent, 1% of advertising was our advertising expense. So I think it's an anomaly. I don't think it's something that I can bank on. And, but it was a good feeling that night.
What are the messages you're pushing out in your ads?
Simple: virtual shop. Call us, virtual shop, text, email, and just virtual shop. Nothing. We wanted to keep it simple. We didn't try to be cute or creative. Just real basic. Come in, virtual shop, and that's just been our consistent message on a regular basis. I don't know if there's really time to do. I think it's trying to be smart about your brand and how we approach ourselves is something we think a lot about because of just the way people's mindset is right now, based on everything.
Whenever you talk to your friends, neighbors, people in the business community, what kind of advice are you giving each other? What are those conversations like? Pep talks even.
I think it's empathetic on how difficult it is, how challenging it is. And then, we're just fighting. And I think that's with anybody who I talk to. But the stress that you hear from people and the people that normally are very calm and together, you can just feel people are just, it's a tough time. It's a very tough time, especially, this week, I think has especially accelerated people's anxiety.
What about this week in particular?
Well, because if you look at the news and you see what's happening in our country, it's unsettling and it's created a lot of anxiety. So if you, as I said, you throw that in to COVID and you throw it into the economy and the unemployment, it's a triple play. And so I think that it's the most greatest mindset and together person is going to feel overwhelmed. So you can see it even in employees and their anxiety that are here and how people are anxious and uncertain. So it's just, I can't imagine there's a time like this for any of us to know how to navigate and how to have the right approach and how to feel about, the way we approach business and what's happening in the country.
Yeah, and that was kind of the whole reason for these calls was if we can kind of gather together and trade ideas, share stories, give each other resources, we're going to be able to emerge better, hopefully, than ever before. And, not knowing that in the middle of COVID, major downward spiral in the economy that we were going to have, riots and things, this unrest and this tension and these horrible things happening that trigger, protests and people, voicing what, the injustice. It's a wild time. Well, Michael, I appreciate you sharing your story, and I want to stay connected. So I don't know, Maureen Coffey, thank you for being here. I see. Do you have any questions? Can you tell us who you are?
I'm Maureen Coffey. I'm with Talalay Global. My dad, Bill Coffey, was actually a co-founder of Latex Foam Products, the predecessor of Talalay Global. So I've been in the latex business for more than 30 years. And I do recognize a few of these people on the call. It's just a pleasure to be here and be with you. Our business is in an uncertain time. We declared bankruptcy last August voluntarily, and we're actually emerging with a brand new owner on Friday. So somebody's going to get a great deal without debt. So it's a challenging time. Besides all of these other, extraordinary circumstances, we're going through an awful lot of rebirth on our own. So it's a privilege to be able to connect with you people and get some feedback as a component supplier and an American manufacturer. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Maureen. And
Michael, I really appreciate your honesty and the fact that all of you have helped with some self-growth and recognizing the fact that these are very emotional and difficult times for all of us, as well as our businesses. I give you an awful lot of credit. And my takeaway, of course, because I'm a huge Boston fan, history, heritage, legacy. I wish you all the very best. Congratulations.
Thanks, Maureen. Appreciate you being here. And we are a customer of yours, and you all do a very great job for us.
And we appreciate that.
Dave Novak, can you tell us about you? Tell the group about you.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. I may be the most rookie of anybody on the call. Spent 26 years working for this small microbrewery in St. Louis, Missouri called Budweiser. And was fortunate enough through a family friend to be introduced to the bedding mattress industry about 7 years ago, initially with Corsicana, and now I'm with Glade Mattress, covering pretty much everything west of the Mississippi, including Hawaii and Alaska. Have made it to Alaska, have not made it to Hawaii. And interesting, coming from a major corporation, working for a small privately held company, much like Michael, in a small business, if you will, very close to the customer, very close to ownership, and decision-making can happen in the scope of 5 minutes, and reaction to the marketplace. It's been interesting being on these calls for the last 3 weeks. Was on, I don't know if anybody else was on the Dave Perry call yesterday with, oh my gosh, his name just escaped me. Was anybody else on that call yesterday? Harry Roberts, who's been in the mattress industry for a long time with Matt Firm. And one of the things they talked about was the focus on health. And I think 2 weeks ago, Mark, in the first session, you brought up the focus on health in terms of, and this is away from this, would include COVID-19. And I think, Michael, you mentioned that people are not as concerned about lying on mattresses as you might think ahead of time, but also the health in terms of what adjustable bases have done for the industry, and focused on positioning your spine in the correct position. and what other what latex does in terms of providing not just comfort but also support, as in the section of the business that Maureen is in. I think it's interesting that this taking ourselves away from the COVID and the activities of the last week with protests and other aggressive activity, I think there's a great positive opportunity to present to the consumer, to the customer, something that takes them beyond the worries of the world, if you will, and focuses specifically on them as a customer and what we can provide them in terms of a better night's sleep. Michael, I think you mentioned you're working out a lot more. I can't tell you how many people I see. We are meeting more people in the neighborhood that we've never met before because they're out, they're focusing on health. I think there's a lot of dogs that are saying, oh my God, enough. I've been on 3 walks today. That's enough. But I think the focus on health is a great opportunity for all of us to move forward and respond to customer needs and wants, whether they know it or not.
That's a great perspective, Dave. And yeah, my dog, I think, is like expecting to be entered into the Iditarod at some point. But, even just, we were trying to figure out a way, like on our website to have relevant messaging, on englander.com. And so, there are studies out there, and you got to be careful about making health claims, but there are studies out there that talk about how sleep impacts your immune system. And I think that's a very relevant message right now. And so, we did a post that, so from the homepage, we're linking right to the message that getting a good night's sleep impacts your immune system. Here's how it does it. And by the way, if you don't have a good mattress, you're going to have problems getting a good night's sleep. So don't make it a dotted line from health and wellness to the mattress. Make sure you firmly connect it. And, I think that message is going to be relevant, just like you're talking about with people working out. And maybe sleep kind of slips out of people's minds as something that impacts your immune system. But we all know, like, whenever somebody brings that idea to the surface, it's like, oh, of course it does. So I think that's good perspective.
I think, as Michael mentioned, good for himself, good for his customers. I think as employees, owners, et cetera, there's a lot at stake here. And maintaining employment is a big deal. A lot of cases, majority of people have been furloughed, and in a lot of cases, people let go. Arriving at work refreshed and ready to go is maybe one of the best things you can do to ensure to impact positively your own future. So that sounds a little bit of soapbox preaching. So I'll get off of it at that. But there's nothing but positive in focusing on health.
Katie Law, how you doing? I'm going to ask you to unmute. Katie, hi.
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking, Mark.
Good.
How are you?
I'm good. Tell us about things in Lake Norman, North Carolina.
It's a beautiful, very hot day here in Lake Norman, North Carolina. And we have been really overblessed with a very busy May. And just really trying to do all we can to keep on our processes, keep in touch with our customers, strong communication because it's not easy to get product right now, and just doing the best we can to serve.
That's something that I see. Jody Pradhan is an Englander partner in India. She's on the call right now. Hi, Jody.
Oh, cool.
We talked yesterday, and during that call, we had people from Mexico, Guatemala, we had India, and several others. And one of the issues that came up was supply issues with raw materials.
Yes.
So I think we're going to start to see that at retail, but we are already seeing fabric suppliers, non-woven suppliers having trouble with, number one, like the non-woven material that you use for pocketed coils, for example, has been co-opted and used for masks and PPE. And so a lot of those supplies are depleted. And so I think we're going to see price increases. I think we're going to see shortages. And then on the fabric side of things and on the componentry side of things, and even in manufacturing, a lot of factories, from what I'm hearing, are having a hard time getting people to come back to work.
Yes.
Stimulus money, unemployment, furlough checks, extra money, for kids in the household, things like that. People were making a little more money, not being employed, And so attracting workers back has also been an issue. So production capacity has dropped a little bit. So that's going to shake out at retail, and you're probably seeing some of that.
Yeah, we definitely have. I mean, we carry mattresses and furniture, and on both sides of the coin there, we're seeing issues more with furniture at this point than mattresses, but definitely experiencing some longer lead times there on all fronts. But I just have to say, one of our best sellers in May, though, was the Englander Elation luxury firm and plushes. Those kill it. They kill it. So if y'all don't have that in your store, you need to get it. I just want to share with the group the industry secrets.
That is really good news, because they were made with lots of love. And I always tell people, I made this collection for mom because you want her to be super comfortable and you don't want her to have a problem. So.
I tell customers that as well.
Awesome. Well, that's great news.
Yeah. But yeah, doing good here.
Well, tell the dream team hi from everybody, and thanks for being here, Katie.
Will do. Thank you.
I just want to say hi to Andy Friedman. Andy, are you still on the call here? I asked Andy to unmute. Kristen Johnson, Ashley Eldridge, Darren Sadikoff. I know you, Darren.
I am here, Mark.
Hey, Andy, tell the group about you.
Well, I'm a manufacturer's rep in the mattress industry, and I'm based in central Massachusetts, and I've been involved in the mattress industry for over 40 years in some fashion. So I've been doing it a long time and have met really wonderful people. And that's the part that I've found most fulfilling and rich. I have a lot of friends around the country, around the world, who have been involved in the supply chain and at retail. Things in the Northeast are still pretty slow. Most of it is still locked down, and I'm enjoying hearing people's thoughts and approaches in different parts of the country, because it's going to give me a sense of what we'll be seeing hopefully in the near future. But it's a challenging time, and some of my retailers will gain market share, and some won't be around when this comes back. So it's been fascinating. On a personal level, I'm using this as a growth opportunity and a personal enrichment opportunity, learning new skills, learning new thought processes. I find this platform interestingly intimate in a way that's very surprising. So I've been enjoying that, and I enjoy what you both you, Mark, and Mark are doing. It's great. So thank you for pulling all this together.
My pleasure. Thanks, Andy. It's nice to meet you. And I can't tell you how many times I've thought this in the past couple months. There was a time when Zoom calls, I'm like, oh, great, Zoom calls. Now I'm like, Zoom calls, I get to see all my friends. This is fun. And just so you all know, Mark Quinn would have been here. His mother passed away. Some of you know that. And the services are this week. So he is down in Houston with his family, and his mom, Dee, was an amazing person. And we gave a speech at Nationwide Marketing Group in Houston back in February. And I got to see his mom and dad, brother Jeff, and his sister Carrie. They're all mattress people. And so anyway, they're celebrating her life. And then Mark will be back next week. So keep him in your thoughts and prayers, and send some good vibes their way. And I know they're celebrating his mom, who was an awesome person. So I don't know if you can hear us, Alberto Moretti. Alberto is my friend from Italy, and his family manufactures mattresses and a variety of products in the bedding space. Can you hear us, Alberto?
Yes, of course. I've been following the whole episode today.
Well, welcome. Thanks for being here. Give us an update from Italy.
Well, things started quite well. You have to consider that we moved into the phase two as companies producer on at the beginning of May, but the retailers were able to open again on the 18th. Since then, I have to say I was sharing some of the consideration that some of you shared on last episode, last Wednesday. The people that are entering the shops are more interested in trying the mattress, and when they go to the shops, it means that they're really looking for a new bed or a new mattress. So yeah, there is more interest definitely, and the tickets also are going high. They're more willing to spend money, probably because the lockdown here for people was over a month. Most of these people realize and they spend a lot of time at home, so they were looking for a new sofa, a new mattress, new curtains, everything to do with a house. So as soon as the people were able to go out, rather than to go for an aperitif, a drink, or a glass of wine, they actually went to the furniture stores, and so the sales have been going back to almost February when the year actually in Italy started quite well.
Well, that's very good to hear, and I think we're seeing the same thing in the U.S. And as I've had conversations with people, and you put it in context, Michael brought up at the beginning this confluence of three major events all happening at the same time. There's also the idea that people aren't going to be taking vacations. They're not going out to restaurants. They're not going out to bars. They're not participating in their kids' sports events and paying for everything that goes along with that. So the people that have been blessed and fortunate enough to maintain employment, I think some people are seeing a little more expendable income in their bank accounts, and they have their home under this magnifying glass, and they're saying, I'm going to make it as good as I can. I don't know how long I'm going to be here and not be able to go do something. And so I think that gives us, maybe there is an opportunity to message around that idea as well. And it sounds like you're seeing that in Italy.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, you have to consider also that, yes, some people were at home and they had to receive some checks from the government. So yeah, it's true the point that you're saying, but also some people had a shortage of money at some point. But then eventually, like you said, they're not spending money on private schools because the schools are locked. They're not spending money on vacation because we cannot travel yet. And some of the countries actually are not accepting Italians. So yeah, it's in Europe I'm talking about. And then in Europe, what happened also is that Germany and France are opening borders to some to some other countries, but Italy still, because we are the main focus of this pandemic, Italian people cannot travel as they wish. So again, we are concentrating our money and spending money on other stuff.
Well, thanks for being here, Alberto. Adam Cole, how are you holding up?
My pleasure.
So we've been very fortunate. We've got 2 stores in North Carolina and 1 in Virginia, and we were able to stay open the entire time, and saw a quick, but then things turned around, and April was strong, and May was actually exceptional. We hit phase 2 about 2 weeks ago in North Carolina. Virginia starts phase 2 later this week. But like you mentioned, the people that are spending more time at home are investing in home. Our furniture store, actually, we topped our best sales month ever by 50% in May. So the people are, and that was mostly in store. Our furniture store is not set up for online sales. Of course, we're communicating via Facebook, other messaging platforms, email, Facebook Live. And then our mattress stores, we do sell online, and we've got the Podium app there. So kind of the same thing. We definitely are seeing more people communicate virtually, but where we're at, we're also getting the in-store traffic.
Good to hear. Good updates. Ashley Eldridge, can you tell us about you? I think that's going to be a maybe. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. Michael, do you have any parting wisdom for us? Any final thoughts?
Just keep fighting. Keep fighting and stay as positive as possible.
Well, we appreciate you very much. Thanks for being I'm going to call it retailer in the round. So we appreciate you being here and sharing your story. And I highly recommend, if you haven't heard Michael's podcast, check it out. It's an awesome one. And then followed up with the one that he mentioned with Doug Stevens, the retail futurist. I got a text from a guy, former CEO of a big mattress retailer out east that's no longer in the business, but still follows the industry. He said, that's the most important podcast you guys have ever done because of the lay of the land and the future of retail and how it's going to evolve. And then we're also, in a way, creating the future right now as an industry. So thank you all for being here. We're going to have next week, we've got Kevin Splitt is actually going to be our retailer in the middle. And then the last week we're going to do Trent Ramberger. So I don't know if you know Trent, but he's a wild and crazy guy. So things will change between now and then. And if you have any questions for me or you have any follow-up, just shoot me an email. I'm going to put it in the chat right here, mark@englander.com. And then be sure and let your friends who may want to hop on the call, let them know about it. And we'll see you guys next week, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks. See y'all.